My name is Gaston, Director of Product Marketing at AppsFlyer. And with me, I have Greg from What 3 Words, Claudia from Howbout, and Stuart from Dominos. So we will have a 30 minutes panel around growth strategies. So let's get started, shall we?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's start with a quick intro. Tell us about yourselves, about the business a bit. Sure.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Ladies first. I'm Claudia. I'm the head of marketing at Howbout. We're a social calendar app to make it easier to get together with friends. So consumer social app. It's a really exciting place to be working in, but I run all things marketing for Howbout.
Hi, I'm Greg, head of growth at What 3 Words. Before I was at TikTok and Sky. Hopefully a lot of people know What 3 Words. If you don't, what we do is essentially we make it really easy for our users to communicate or talk about precise location anywhere in the world. What that means in practice is that we've broken the world down into 3 meter by 3 meter squares, and we've given each square its own unique 3-word address using words from the dictionary. So this chair here would have its own address, which could be apple, spoon, banana, and that chair over there could have its own address, which could be rock, paper, scissors. So if I wanted to meet someone at that chair and not this chair, I could give you that 3-word address rather than giving you the street address for this building, which would just take you to the whole building and you wouldn't know where to find each other. We've been downloaded over 50 million times. We work in almost 60 different languages, and we've been integrated by some pretty big companies in the logistics space like DHL, DPD, some big car companies like Mercedes and Jaguar Land Rover. And really excitingly, we get used by a lot of emergency services as well, and there's a lot of great examples where What 3 Words has been used in emergency situations to prevent loss of life.
Amazing.
I'm Stuart Jones. I'm the head of digital products at Dominos. I've been working in digital technology and customer-facing technology for about 25 years, which makes me feel super old. And contrary to my physical appearance, me and Gaston aren't related. I'm sure it's the burning question of the morning. But no, so I've been at Dominos for not that long, only about 4 months, and it's great to be part of an e-commerce team that's really focused on growth and growth strategies as well.
Cool. So let's get started with a more fun question, and I'd love to hear your point of views. So there's no day that goes by without us speaking or listening about AI, ChatGPT, DALL-E, and all these AI-based tools. And I think it would be great to hear what are your plans when it comes to implementing these tools within your growth strategy or even within your apps. And listen your different point of views here.
Sure, I don't mind going first. Yeah, so I think on a kind of contextual level, I'm fucking terrified of AI, to be honest. And it's not just because of where it leaves my career. I'm raising 2 children in this weird, crazy world about who knows what their profession is going to look like. So when they're telling me what they want to do, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you're not going to be able to do that. So I think there is this kind of real world point which we all need to be considerate of. How does that factor into the business and what we do at a place like Domino's? I mean, we can't not be part of the AI conversation. I still think there's this strange PR relationship people have with AI. What actually is it, Terminology we're using has been around since the 40s and the 50s. It's only now it's coming into focus because it's becoming more conversational. And I think the real nut to crack is how good your data is and your input. It still really, really matters because it's not this ethereal machine that can give you all the answers to all your problems. You need to feed it the right level of information to make those calls. So I'd say our journey is about how do we get ready for the innovation, and that is that moment come, is that inflection moment come when we now need to start investing. Like I said, I've been working in this space for a long time. It was big data, it was cloud, it's now AI. Are they tangibly? They're really kind of the same thing. How can you make data work better for you? And so I think it's important that data is still at the heart of these decisions.
Yeah, I think he did a great job at kind of painting the picture, and I think one of the main things to continue remembering too is that it's a tool that we can use, and it's not like it's at our disposal to use in the ways that we as humans can creatively interpret in many different ways. So just on the highest level, we've been using like ChatGPT to optimize some of our long form content or give us ideas. Like we're a social planning app. We're all about, getting you together with your friends and making it really easy to do that. And kind of from a more comms or social perspective, we're often trying to come up with unique plan ideas or fun party themes and stuff like that. And surprisingly, ChatGPT is really good at coming up with quirky plan ideas. So we'll feed it some inspiration and then, it pops out some funny terms and then we can kind of interpret that into a TikTok video or social media post or, factor it into some of our long form content too. But it's really we've been using it as this resource, at our disposal. I am very interested to see in kind of how things progress, especially as more visual AI becomes, more every day, how we'll continue to incorporate those in our strategy. But yeah, it's a very interesting tool, and I'm excited to see where it develops and also a little bit terrified.
Teams within our business are starting to use it to increase productivity, things like that. But in terms of growth strategy, no, it's not really on our radar at the moment.
Okay, cool. Greg, I personally have been talking to so many brands around the world, and since iOS 14 and privacy and all that stuff, we're seeing many brands moving to different channels and venturing into new platforms and ways of engaging with users. Can you tell us about any different channels you're trying out?
Sure. I mean, for us, it's not necessarily like privacy or iOS based or anything like that. I think we built a certain user base in the traditional ways, through Meta, Google, UA stuff. In 2020, we started loading in more mass media channels, so TV especially. So we've run TV campaigns now in 6 markets globally. A lot of people here are probably going to think, well, that's great for you. You've obviously got enough money to run TV. But actually, no. Most of those TV campaigns that we launched were done with little or no money because we did these things called media for equity deals. So in the UK here, for example, ITV, Channel 4, they're investors in What 3 Words. They gave us each £4 million worth of media space. So we now have a lot of media credits to spend with the likes of ITV and Channel 4. And we've used that model. I think we must be one of the world leading companies that have used media for equity as a growth tool. We've gone to Germany and worked with ProSieben, Sat1, which is a huge TV company over there, and in India, the Times of India, which is not, well, they do have TV channels, but they're mainly print media. We did a $10 million deal with them. So at times like now, where cash is precious and you don't want to be burning through your runway, we still have access to mass media in multiple markets because of these media for equity deals that we've done. And the reason why we did this was we knew that those traditional UA channels would get us so far. But for What 3 Words to succeed as this global addressing standard that we're trying to achieve, we know that we need significant network effects. We need to be reaching hundreds of millions of users, which you can do through Meta and Google, but it gets expensive. And TV has been really effective for us in raising awareness of our brand to new users, but also of all the different use cases that I mentioned before, even to existing users.
Nice. Any best practices you can share with people that till now were very focused on Facebook and Google?
With TV, I think the thing that we've found very valuable is having an attribution model. So we are able to measure CPI of our TV spots, just like we do with our online campaigns. I think without that, we'd really struggle to understand the value of what we're doing, short of doing traditional awareness dips, which are useful. But for a company like ours, and probably all of ours, which are quite data-driven, we do need to know really what the ROI is, and whether that's just the straight install or whether it's in-app actions. We've got clever data scientists internally that are doing that for us.
Nice. Stuart, let's get into the economic downturn. So we have all been experiencing budget cuts, and I know you're more focused on the post-UA stage of the funnel. And it would be nice to understand how you're optimizing the less traffic that you might be getting from marketing and optimizing it
Sure.
to generate more conversions.
Yeah, so the space I work in that Gaston's referring to, so inside the product team, our responsibility is to make sure that when traffic ultimately arrives at the product, which is the Domino's website and the app, we're in a position to convert that to success. And so what's really important for us is to make sure that we've got context. And I think this is what's really interesting is, I've been in product for about 12 or 15 years. It sits in different departments depending on the company you're in. So it can sit within a technical function, it can sit within a marketing function, it can sit by itself. And working inside a marketing function like we do at Domino's is really good because I can have a conversation or be part of a conversation which is about how is the campaign intended to work? If we're spending X on Y platform, what are we actually trying to do with that data? And then the unique position that puts us in then is we can say, well, if we're running this campaign to attract this segmentation of people at this time of day within this kind of economic climate or situation, there's something tailored we can do on the app to try and accommodate that. When it doesn't sit within inside a marketing function, you tend to have these conversations post campaign. Why didn't that campaign work? Oh, it's because the app didn't respond in a way we wanted it to. It's a bit late now, we spent all the money. So I think what's interesting about what we're trying to do at Domino's is that we're trying to have aligned KPIs and objectives when it comes down to intended actions from marketing spend as well. It really helps me to go, okay, we can now look at personalization tracks, so we can look at how we're prioritizing our menu. And if you take an example like a 2 for Tuesday offer, suddenly with the context of knowing where the spend's going, we know what's going to happen on a Tuesday at what time, and therefore we could potentially make the product respond to that. So I think it's interesting, and I think it's really important to the question is to say economically what we're trying to do, because there's spend out there, but there's not necessarily the people coming and spending the money. So we've got to really not waste traffic. And we can only not waste traffic by having relevant conversations with people who are spending the money. So I think the answer is to try and work far more closely, product and marketing, let's not be detached, let's try and have that universal view.
Okay. Claudia. Hi. So a lot of changes are happening in the industry. We were talking about privacy earlier and economic downturn, and I think this is leading many marketers to look at different optimization methodologies, right? If it's predictive analytics, if it's incrementality testing, if it's creative optimization. Can you tell us about your different strategies and what are your optimization points?
Yeah, so we have really, I guess, had the luxury of being really hands-on with our creative strategy and where we spend, so we can really test a lot of creative styles and maximize our spend to drive downloads. Obviously, we are an app that it's a really compelling idea if you think about the fact that it's making it easier to do something that everybody wants to do to a certain extent, which is getting together with friends. So we know that within our target, we've been able to identify the channels where they are, and that's kind of a brand to content kind of, they work together in the sense that we have been able to really narrow down what our typical or ideal user is, as well as narrow down with more kind of psychographic insights on our overarching target user, which has allowed us to really be able to double down on messages that we say to them and make sure that they're compelling. So what that means is we use our message testing to inform who we're going after and why, and also looking at down the funnel actions and what is important to us, but also be able to do the other way around. So now that we have more insight into who this person is, what are the messages that would be most compelling to them? So what we have kind of been working a lot at doing too is using our organic channels to message test, see what's compelling, and then learn from that, both from from a brand and a target perspective, but also from an ads perspective, making all of our spend more effective. So that's been kind of how we've been doing it, and we've seen success both at bettering our organic and videos that go viral and downloads that we get from it, and with over 1 million downloads, there's a lot of insights that come in with that. But it's really important that you're kind of learning from the users themselves, but also learning from the market and what's out there when you are testing different messaging and seeing what works. Yeah.
Cool. So going back to the economic downturn, now I think it's important for us to address that and share with people different strategies and how we can overcome these times. And I'd like to hear all your perspective now. At AppsFlyer, we've been talking a lot about digital sustainability, or connecting to the previous session, doing more with less. And I'd like to hear how are you addressing this, and if you're focusing more on owned media and trying to engage with existing customers more than acquiring new ones.
Yeah, I can start because it kind of builds on my last thing. So we've really prioritized message testing through our organic channels. I guess TikTok's algorithm is always changing, but how it stands now is really a great way to test and learn quickly. Volume of content is good, but the quality of content's better. And if you have the capability to test with an organic audience, whether it's your followers or not, you could have 0 followers and have a video go viral. It's really great to be able to use that organic channel for free to figure out what works in your paid. And then another thing is really knowing and tuning into the conversations online can lead to more effective content. Obviously, I feel like we all know that, but specifically how they're talking about different things that are going on, again, to make your insights or messages more compelling. So for instance, in a world where people are spending potentially less, going out or going to festivals or doing all these things, they still want to get their friends together. So coming up with creative that talks to potentially a more budget-friendly way to get your friends together, or make it still be as exciting, but you could do X, Y, Z. It's a great way to kind of build that community and keep people engaged, but also, optimize on our end to figure out what's working before we put any spend behind it, so we know it's going to convert.
Okay. Stuart?
I think that's the answer. So there's not much to really add to that. I guess from my perspective, it's about making sure we, when we are on the message we're sending out is as relevant as it possibly can be to the segment. And I think what's difficult is we find it's difficult to not go after the wrong type of people. So we are going through an economic downturn. So do you target those without the kind of the fund to spend, or do you double down on the ones who have? And so it's really trying to understand what that strategy looks like in the current climate, but not in a way which is trying to devalue the product at the same time as well. So we don't want to cheapen ourselves, we don't want to come across as, just chasing the bottom pounds or whatever. So I think it is about trying to stay relevant and stay on your vision. The interesting thing about the economic downturn is, it's been predicted for a while. So it theoretically should have been budgeted for. And I'm sure many companies did, because we're still trying to grow as strongly as we've done in any of the year. But I think it's still trying to be honest about what your core company product value is, and not actually change that message too strongly.
Yeah, we're doing more with less, definitely. We have made smart changes to our ad spend, certainly on the UA side. Mm-hmm. Less so on the re-engagement and engagement side, because we know the value that adds, and we don't want to turn that off. But to be honest, what we found actually in scaling down our UA spend is it really tells you a lot about your core user base, and kind of what your baseline level of usage really is. We've learned so much, and we're doing a lot of analysis at the moment during this time when things have turned down a little bit. Because normally when we're BAU, our user acquisition engine is like ferocious pace. We spend quite a lot. We're doing so much optimization, bringing in new users. But now that we've turned that down a bit, learning a lot more, and we know that when we decide to turn that back up, we're going to be in a much better place, not only on CPI, but on kind of the engaged actions that we see onwardly after the install.
Okay. To our next question, staying with you, and it's very connected to it, is, and I believe I already got the answer, but are you focusing more on UA or on engaging with existing customers? And
Yes, we have been lucky in the last 5 years. Like, we have installed a lot of users. As I said, it's like over 50 million globally. I think the number's actually a lot higher. I'm just not allowed to say. So we've got a lot of people that we can communicate to through our own channels like push or in-app messaging. We've got a huge email database as well. And we're really leaning into that. Our North Star metric is not new users. Our North Star metric is usage of 3-word addresses. And we're seeing that line continue to go up, even if our new user numbers are not as high as they were a year ago, because ad spends are down. So as long as we keep driving that North Star up, we know that what 3 words is becoming more of a thing in the real world, and that's ultimately our objective. And we know that we've got levers with our other messaging platforms which are ultimately free, or we can leverage our TV campaigns or print media to try and drive that stuff. So yeah, still interested in UA, obviously. New users pouring in the top of the funnel, like, really important, but we're plugging that leaky kind of bucket. We're doing a much better job now than we were a few years ago. And certainly our share of budget online that goes into re-engagement or retargeting is a lot higher. I think when I joined the company, pretty much everything was going into user acquisition, whereas now, at the moment, the lion's share of our budget is actually in retargeting, re-engagement of existing users.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I can just add to that, a bit based on what we were saying too. We were able to really, while kind of user acquisition is our most, user acquisition is our most North Star metric right now, because we see network effects really kick in once they're on the app. So you get someone on and they bring on their friends, the nature of getting together with friends. But what has been really helpful and interesting to us is being able to, while we're not, building campaigns for down the funnel actions at this moment, we do look at down the funnel actions, which has now impacted, as I was talking about, our ideal user persona and what we've created internally to better understand who that person is and how we can talk to them more effectively, because everyone knows that, every friend group has the admin king or queen that's going to take charge and, going to make the reservation and going to get the group to maneuver themselves. So being able to see, especially from a message testing perspective, which I guess I've talked about a lot, but especially from that perspective, to see which messaging is most compelling to this user that is going to be the most action based. They are going to come in with strong intention to get all their friends on and get them together. It's been really beneficial to kind of use both ends of the spectrum.
Okay. Stuart, talking about tech stack.
Yeah.
Can you share with us first any new trends you're seeing and adopting, and two, what's the connection between new tech stack you're adopting to customer experience and, of course, increasing conversion rates down the funnel?
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting space, the tech stack for the product at the moment, because it wasn't that long ago where the tech stack was native app, and we'd talk about native or we'd talk about PWA and talk about it as this kind of monolith almost of a product. Things have moved on so quickly now. If you look at the tech stack of any kind of modern app that comes out, it's a combination of different softwares of a service, and so you get the SaaSes and you get your own native product experience and you put them together and you're creating something which is dynamic. So we do lots of personalization testing. We're doing more MVT testing than we've done before. The tool that's driving those experiments suddenly become the tech stack, which is where you do your scale. So I think what's really interesting for us is two things. One, let's get our fundamentals right. And we're doing lots of fundamental back-end work at the moment, which isn't necessarily visible to the customer, but does do things like increase performance of speed and allows us to make changes much more frequently. The customer impact inside is where we look at tools, and we use various tools to kind of create MVT tests and personalization tests. We're actually spending way more time than we've done before talking to account managers in this space, because their product is almost driving such a large percentage of our roadmap that if we're not careful, their customer experience and feature roadmap will drive our experience. So we need to get way more closely aligned with what our partners are doing to make sure that we don't just outsource our creativity to somebody else. So I think that's what the interesting tech stack space looks like. Of course, you've got the big players who will really support your drive and growth, and I'm sure there's lots of them in the room as well. So it's really trying to not just find the partner that's going to give you growth acceleration, but the partner that's going to allow you to still have a voice inside your product when that application is turned on.
And it is moving at a real fast pace. It's not so long ago that just having a newsletter or an email was kind of enough. Now you've got a complex matrix of email, but in-app messages, push notifications, your paid retargeting as well, and tech is really helping. So I know I for sure am leaning a lot more into that side of our tech stack than the MMP side, which maybe was 2 years ago was really where we were spending most of our time.
And it's interesting where we drive traffic. So we really encourage app usage over web usage. There's lots of different conversion metrics we've got that point to that being the reason why. But we're prepared to make the product cheaper on app than on web to increase that throughput. And the reason is, like you say, there's better customer experience and control in a channel that's also driving increased growth. So why would we not try to encourage it? We're never going to walk away from, let's say, web, but it's equally, we've got to try and figure out where we want our customers to focus, and then what that tech stack means to us as a business as well. So, like Greg said, it's super complicated.
Interesting. Okay, last question. And considering everything we discussed till now, in 2023, what do you think would be the skill set app growth professional needs to bring to the table to succeed?
I would say stay calm. The world's a pretty interesting place at the moment. Funding is not readily available, or not as readily available as it used to be. Banks are going under. Tech companies are making mass redundancies. There's a lot of distractions in the world. So I would say it's really important to stay calm, have a plan, and kind of, well, certainly have an objective, have a goal, know where it is that you're trying to get to, and have a plan to get there. Maybe with the expectation that plan may change a little bit along the way, be flexible, but never deviate from ultimately what it is that you're trying to achieve in whatever time frame it is that you need to achieve it. There's a lot going on, just stay cool.
And any specific new skills that people need to acquire right now?
I think the previous talk mentioned it, like SWAT up. So growth teams, I think, always have been quite cross-functional teams. Not necessarily owning anything in particular, but plugging into all the work that everyone else is doing and getting people going in the right direction. And I think more so than ever, doing that swatting up, leaning into things that you might not be an expert in, but you can help with, particularly if teams are a little bit pressured on resource, more so than they were. So it's not so much a skill set, but just being ready to dive in and add value wherever you can across the business. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So to that point, I think exactly to that point is that working cross teams is going to be super important, with my second tip, which is really listening. So oftentimes your users are telling you what they want. You just have to be listening, whether it's kind of more broad in the social space and catching trends, or figuring out how you can tweak your messaging to fit something that is already existing and they're already talking about or already thinking or feeling. But also, working, with your customer success teams or people that are talking to your actual users, and, if they're asking for something, listen, or figure out how you can find a hacky way to listen. If one example is if we have a lot of users, asking for a specific feature and it doesn't quite exist, but it might eventually, but there's a way around it in the app. There's a way to do it. We've created TikTok videos about that, being oh, you want to do that? Or we put it in a context and we say, oh, my friend is, XYZ, and this is one way I do it on the app. And we actually see a lot of success with that, but it's just this kind of constant feedback loop and optimizing quickly and being able to be agile and be this is the message that's working now, so let's double down on that, or let's refine it because it's not working for one way or another, even though it was just like the other one that was working. So just being agile, listening, and working cross teams so you're getting the full picture when you're
Totally
working
agree.
through your
Yeah.
comms.
Yeah, I definitely echo those 2 points. I think for, just to try and something different, is that there's that saying which is like, if a lion could speak English, you wouldn't understand its point of reference and it would make no sense. That's how I felt when I came into marketing. It just made no sense, right? So I think for me, what's interesting is that if this world is converging so quickly, where marketing and technology and product are just one and the same, you could put UI and UX in there, look at Midjourney, and how long would it be before you could actually ask a question about design as opposed to design one? So I think the challenge we've all got is, how do we communicate with a common language and not silo ourselves? So I think that skill for me would be, whatever discipline you're in, try and respect and understand what other people are also trying to do in there as well. So we spend a lot of time trying to understand acronyms, which marketeers love. And, you know, it's really difficult for us to kind of go, I can see what you're saying, but I don't know what you're intending to do with that. So, like, you know, return on ad spend, for example, right? How can we help with that? We can't help if you don't understand it. So that to us is the skill I think we need to adapt as a product team. How do we get better versed in marketing terminology? Likewise, how do they get better versed in asking the right questions of us? And that, I think, is about shared. So I'd say that skill is about understanding discipline outside of the department that you might be in.
Nice. Anything else you guys like to share with the audience? No? Cool. So we're done. I'd just like you to come over the AppsFlyer booth, play some Pac-Man, and chat with us. I'll be there.
There are a few questions. We could cover some of these if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So just, I don't know if you can see them over there, but we can see them. So it's how are we measuring installs from TV campaigns? Is it mixed media modeling? For us, we're not doing like pure mixed media modeling. We have a TV-specific, I guess, analytics tool that we've built to measure CPI and other actions. It's to do with kind of just establishing what a baseline level of usage is when TV is not switched on, and then seeing what happens when we put the spots out there. We look at the cost of the TV spot. We see the relative spike in the install or relative spike in the in-app actions, and we basically measure what we think would have happened versus what did. So it's more of a kind of a pure data analysis play, and not necessarily comparing it to other media. There was another question I think that was up there before, which was just like how do CPIs compare in TV? And I think for us it tends to be anywhere from between 10 to 20x the install cost of a Meta or a Google.
That's on CTV or linear TV?
Linear.
Linear.
Yeah, we do CTV as well, but obviously we can get CPIs from that a little bit more directly. But we do a lot of linear TV, and like I say, it's about between 10 and 20x, depending on the market, depending on the message. But not all of our TV campaigns are about install. A lot of them are just about re-engagement of existing users and stuff like that. But 100% it's not as efficient as digital channels for driving install.
Nice. Cool.
I'll take the bottom one. What's your favourite cocktail? I can anyone that's free, I reckon.
I'd say Moscow Mule.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thank you all for having us and being here with us.
Thanks.
Cool.